Okay, so this is a short guide for the Singularity. We're going to be demonstrating a couple really specific use cases that can really help your gameplay out. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about is Chainball. Chainball is a mechanic I found out about a little while ago, and it talks about how teleports to a survivor work. So when a survivor moves back and forth, there's an invisible hitbox that follows them, and it sort of lingers just behind them like this, as if there's another survivor behind them. If I teleport to it, I will land where that hitbox is, and then I will be facing directly where the survivor is. If the survivor walks towards me, the chainball stays where it is, because like a normal chainball, you can walk over it. So I'll teleport here, but now I'm gonna face towards them like that. Sometimes when they're exactly on top of the hitbox, you can go inside of them and it creates some really disorientating teleports. But we're going to show off a bit of an example here. So if we come outside, I'm going to show off how it works. So I'm going to shoot down a Biopod and I'm going to infect. And now if my partner here runs in a straight line in this direction and then stops, it's pretty obvious that if I teleport, I'm going to end up about right here, because that's where the chainball is appearing. Now, if he walks exactly to where I'm standing, I'm going to be teleported inside of him instead. Well, I wasn't exactly inside of him, but you can see in this case, I landed here because that's exactly where the chainball is. So now if I teleport again, I got pushed out there, but you could see for a moment I was inside of his model. So how that means, or how that works, is when a survivor moves, they drag the chainball with them, and if they stop moving, the chainball stops, and then they can walk back over it. So, how is this information useful? Well, in this case, when you perform actions like vaulting a window, your chainball actually stays where it is. So if we come inside main here, and we come to this window, he's got a bit of a little friend on top of him there. If we come to this window and we just vault it, now even though he's on that side and I can't hit him like this, if I teleport, despite him being on that side, the chainball's last location was about exactly where I'm standing, right below this little white cement bit. And you'll see that we land where this happened. Now there's a couple interesting mechanics. If he wants to come back here, we're gonna watch this from a side POV. So you might know that if you vault, if survivors vault windows, their items disappear for a brief moment, like that. Okay, so if he runs towards this window and spams spacebar, the item disappeared right there, meaning his chainball location is right here. So we should end up on this this sort of watery gunk. And if I move back, we ended up right there. So how is that useful for a survivor? Well, because of that, I know I can't hit him through here. And if I slow vault, he's going to get through to this pallet. So he knows that at a moment I'm in a predicament where I can't teleport, I can't hit him, and if I vault slowly, he gets to another loop. But a normal Singularity might not know that. So when they teleport, they're all the way back here. And then he's got all this distance now. So what I'm gonna do now is, we know that a long vault, we teleport and land about here. We're going to do a short vault. So he's going to hit spacebar as late as he can right before he hits the window. Perfect. And his item disappeared about here, meaning the chainball is about right here. So if I teleport, and again, it doesn't really matter where you teleport from. See, I'm on this side, right? If I teleport, it puts me back here, right to where this little crack in the floor is. And that's because what happens is when you interact with a window, you're no longer having input to the chainball, basically. The chainball relies on you moving, but when you commit to an action, it stops moving and it lags behind until you move again. So unless Green Dean moves towards me, which again, he can walk directly towards me, even if I teleport here, I'm still gonna end up on top of that little crack in the floor. Okay, so that's one way to get outplayed by a survivor. Now for killer counters, if someone's vaulting from a range and I want to get them, if I know they're vaulting, I'm just going to hold their gun like this. And if they move to either of the two sides of the window, I can then teleport and get out. Otherwise, if they don't move, I just put it away and then vault into them. So in a real case scenario, if I was inside this building coming from the main front door and I'm chasing Green Dean here and he takes that window. So I definitely can't make this, but I'm gonna hold this, and because he moved, I can get out. And now I can move over to him and I can get this hit right before the pellet. So another use case for survivors is people know that when a Singularity teleports through a drop pellet, it will break. This is actually reliant on the Chainball. So what a good survivor can do, remember, knowing that the Chainball follows survivors, is if I do get stunned here, Green can quickly run a circle, dragging the ball away from the pellet, and then he can hug the pellet. And what that means is that when I teleport, I'm actually going to end up on the inside, and then he can vault over it and the pellet doesn't break. And we'll demonstrate this here. So I get stunned, now I want to teleport, but I'm behind the pellet, so now I have to kick it, and if he had an exhaustion perk like life, he's going to make a lot of distance. So that's one of the things you can do. Again, because of the Chainball, because he's vaulted it, it should be on his side now or in the pellet, so if I teleport, it breaks it. So when it comes to pellets, it is okay to teleport and brute force them, but there's two problems with this. Every time you brute force a pellet, you're not achieving more chase time. If, for example, I teleport and Green gets behind something and I don't have any biopods, I'm not achieving anything. And in this case, he has an EMP, so it's even worse, right? So ideally, the thing that you want to do is if you do get to a loop, especially a small one like this where it's not really mind gameable, you can still throw a biopod up here. And if we just play this loop normally, what you can kind of do is take the pellet side, take this, and just sort of mind game back and forth with your biopod, and that'll freak them out a bit. And usually that ends up getting you a hit, which is really useful. The other thing you can do is knowing that if they drop the pellet, in this case in this loop, now to play around it, I just have to know that I can't teleport to him when he jumps over the pellet. If he's going to the pellet, it's okay to teleport, but then you're going to end up in a scenario where I'm coming out of overclock, he vaults the pellet, and the pellet's not broken. So in this case here, if I'm chasing him, it's sort of the same mechanic. I'm going to push him to the long side, because that's where the best biopod is. And then it's sort of just playing off this mind game routine again. So in this case, I didn't achieve what I want in getting a hit. But now that I'm overclock, I could have just kicked that pellet and that would have been just fine. You can also do this with it. So if you make the survivor run back and forth, what happens is that they can get caught on their own chainball. And what that means for you is that when they're running back and forth, if you time it perfectly to when you teleport, when they turn around, you'll do this. And you'll end up inside of them. And usually in most cases, you can get a hit, but it's all up to reaction time. So one of the things that I want to make mention of is a Biopod Tech discovered by Alcana_NC. And what it does is, I believe it's a bug and not intended, but for now it is a tech that us Singularity players can use. So how does it work? When you infect people, you have a bit of an internal cooldown where when you shoot out a biopod, you can't shoot for another 3 seconds. So if I get Green Dean to EMP this biopod, usually when you're in this biopod and you scan, it'll shoot, and then for 3 seconds it won't shoot again, and then after those 3 seconds it'll shoot. So if I get Green Dean to go work on that gen over there, what you can do is one of two things. First of all, it's important to note that biopods, disabled or not, still show auras. Working biopods, however, you see that white glistening glow? That means that the biopod is active and ready to use. When the biopod does not have that glow and it's smoking and static, it means that it's broken. So, I'm going to quickly show you what a Biopod Tech is. Now that was a really fast teleport. And how that worked is, again, I'm going to go over here and get an EMP, and I'm going to show you what normally happens. But while we do that and we find another EMP to use, when you infect someone, you go on an internal cooldown. When you switch to a broken biopod, it resets that cooldown. So then you can just press right click to immediately switch back, and it fixes it. So I'm going to show you what a normal biopod looks like when you try to tag someone. So if I jump in here and I get green, I can't re-tag him. And now look at him, he's running, he's out of range, I can't get him. Almost there I could. And then obviously this biopod, it's broken, so it doesn't work. So because of that cooldown, I wasn't able to get the tag. But when I utilize that Biopod Tech by infecting, switching, and then right clicking again to go back, I teleported on top of him to get him. And it would have turned into a very quick chase. And again, for demonstration purposes, I'll show you how it works and I'll try break it down. So it's very fast, but here's how it works. You enter the biopod that you want to infect with, and you keep in mind where your other biopod is. You want to quickly infect, switch, right click, and then you're on. Now for me, my switch bind is F, but for normal game controls, it would be the control key. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some survivor interactions on how the infection works on survivor, because it's very important to know as a singularity which survivors you should be infecting and which survivors you should be hooking, slugging, all those things. So we'll switch over to survivor and I'll go give some examples. Okay, so we're going to talk about things you need to do as a killer and things to look out for as a survivor. So one of the things is if Green Dean throws down a biopod here. Now, if he tries to infect me, it's going to take a very long time because I'm hugging that hook. So don't do this as killer. It's really bad. It doesn't matter if that biopod is all the way over there at main. If a survivor is within 10 meters of a survivor, it's just extremely slow. So in this case, I'm going to move back. Well, Felix is here to ruin the video.
I was watching him the whole time. He was like vibing like right in front of me the whole time. It was so fun.
Okay, take two because of Felix. So if you're playing a Singularity, if you infect someone when he finds the perfect biopod position, so if I get infected now, if I save this arena, even if I try running opposite away from her, she's going to get infected. So I'm going to pick her off. And even though we started running opposite corners, she immediately got infected. So if you can, you want to try and infect the people who are running to save without them getting too close to the hook and slowing down the timer. It should be obvious, but when a survivor gets hooked, their biopod or slipstream infection gets removed. So one of the mechanics regarding infection is that we can see that Felix is downed over here and he's infected. Now, when he picks himself up, or if I pick him up, for the first 3 to 4 seconds, he can't infect me. And about now, it should kick in. And now I'm infected. Now, in that case, both of us could have easily split off in any of our own directions. So instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to run over the Felix. I'm going to disinfect him. And we're going to re-down him. And then I'm going to get infected and get him to pick himself up. So now in this example, I'm infected. As soon as Felix gets up off the ground, he's immediately going to start being infected, and then he'll get slipstreamed. Just like that. So in that time, you can actually both split off in separate directions to avoid that from happening. But there's no alarm or ping sound that you normally hear, so that there's no warning. So how I would describe that is survivors who are in peril, meaning that they're on the ground, they're on the hook, or even on the killer's shoulder, they have a inbuilt timer not to infect other people. But normal survivors who are just chilling out, they can infect others easily. So even, for example, let's say I'm on Green's shoulder, or I'm on a pallet and he picks me up, and Hattie comes to pallet save. Because I'm the one in peril, I wouldn't be able to infect her, but because Hattie is not in peril and she's just normal, she's not downed or anything like that, she can infect me instantly as soon as I get off the shoulder, and I have no time to react to that. So that pretty much covers everything I know about Singularity. So I hope this guide helps out, and I guess I'll see you in the future.